Okay, guys, today we're going to go over the supplemental aids. This is what the front looks like, and this is what the back looks like, and I am going to explain each one in detail. Pay attention because I will be asking you questions throughout the video. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and start with this first one, Doctor ID. That's what they call it. It's DRID. That's your X and your Y. And then that's your X and your Y. Why? Because the X is the domain. So X is domain and the independent. Make sure that you're writing this down. Y is your range, and it is also your dependent. Okay? And it goes in that order. So first we have the X and the Y. So D is domain, R is range, I is the independent, D is dependent. So domain, range, independent, dependent. We can also draw a table, X, Y, D, R, I, D. Okay, so X is domain, independent, Y is range, and your dependent variable. You can also remember redox. Redox. Range is your Y, domain on the X. Okay, range is Y, domain is X. So we can write that down. Range is Y and domain is your X. Okay, so that's something that can refresh your memory and remind you of which one is X, which one's Y. So what is domain? It's the X. What is dependent? It's the Y. If you see that, that can probably help you. Okay, the next one, HOVU. HOVU means that horizontal has a 0 slope and vertical has an undefined slope. So let's write that down. Horizontal, 0 slope. Okay? And horizontal looks like this. And then vertical, this is vertical, has an undefined slope. And vertical looks like this. Okay, so anytime you see a horizontal line, remember that it has 0 slope, and anytime you see a vertical line, remember that's an undefined slope. Okay? DLR stands for, we can also say dollar and then ribbit. Okay, this is when we're talking about domain and range. So domain goes from left to right. Okay, you're going to read it like this. Write this down. From here to here, like that. From left to right. And then this one over here is the range. Goes from the bottom to the top. From bottom to top. So it's going to look like this. You're going to look at the lowest point to the highest point, from the bottom to the top. Rocks. This is when we're talking about quadratics and their solutions. So I'm just going to draw it really quickly. This is what we are talking about when we say rocks. Okay, those points. So rocks stands for, R is roots. Okay, those two things are called roots. That's one word that we can use for it. This O is not really an O, it's more like a 0. Because those two things can also be called zeros. Okay, the X stands for x-intercept, because those two things are your x-intercepts. And they can also be called, S is for solutions. Okay, so if you cannot remember, think of the word rocks and think about, okay, R is the roots. Those two things are called roots. They can be called zeros. They can be called x-intercepts, and they can be called solutions. Okay, the next one, we don't use it too often, but we can. It's called FOIL. Okay, and I'm going to give you an example. Let's say you are multiplying two things, x plus 3 times x minus 5. Okay, you can use FOIL to simplify, to multiply those out, and you will use F means for the first. So you're going to multiply the first ones. This one times the first one of this one. Okay. The O stands for outer or outside ones. Okay, so that means this outside one, I'm going to multiply it with this other outside one. Actually, go back. It's this outside one. I'm going to multiply it with this outside one, because those are the ones on the outside, right? This one's outside on the end, and then this one's outside on the end. Then the I is for inside or inner. So the inside ones, right? So I can multiply this and this. These are my inside ones. This times this. And then L means last. So L is for last. So I will multiply the last ones. This one times this last one. Okay? But it's kind of like using the box. And I'm going to show you the box in just a little bit, because we can do the same thing using the box method. Okay, MDR, we're going to talk about that this week during a review or next week. M stands for move. We're going to move something to the other side. D stands for divide. We're going to be dividing something. And R stands for remove. We're going to be removing something. Okay? And this is used for when we solve for Y. So let me write this down. Solve for Y. So we'll go over that pretty soon. Okay, this next one's a little bit harder one, but let me try to explain it. Where did I put it? Hold on. Okay, so you can pause the video and write this down, but power to a power, when you have exponents, you have power to a power, you are going to multiply the exponents. So if you have power to a power, you will multiply the exponents, okay? When you have multiplication, you will add. So multiplication, you add, okay? When you add, when you have addition problems, you do nothing to the exponents, they will stay the same. So when you have addition, you do nothing to the exponents, they stay the same. Then, when you have division of problems, when you divide things with exponents, you subtract the exponents. So division, you subtract. Okay, that's just a way of how to do rules of exponents. All right, the next one we have is GIMDOS. And that one just means you do grouping first, so groups or parentheses. It used to be PEMDAS, right? So G means you have to do groups first, okay? E stands for exponents. You do the exponents second. So this is the order of how you do operations. M stands for multiplication. Okay. D stands for what? Division. Okay. A obviously stands for addition. And the S stands for subtraction. Okay, so that's just to remember the order of how you do operations. On the back, this is to remind you, you can use this on the test, and when you get it, you can start labeling. This is the domain or independent. That's your x-axis, right? And then this one is your range, your dependent. That is your y-axis. And then up here you have the title. Okay. This we can use for multiplications or for algebra tiles. If your teacher uses algebra tiles, then you can also use them on here. So algebra tiles, and it's used for multiplication. Okay, so only use that one if you've been taught how to use it. Okay, this is your table, so remember when you get it, you fill it out, X and Y. X is your domain, Y is your range, X is your independent, Y is your dependent, X is your input, Y is your output. Okay, and you can fill it out with more things. This is the slope man. This is a positive. Let me put it right here, like if it's an I, your I. Positive, negative. This has a U for undefined because the vertical line is undefined. And this one will have zeros. Okay, this is 0, undefined, positive, negative. Down here, this is the box method, remember? You can have an example, x plus 3, x minus 5, and you multiply in. X times x is x squared. X times negative 5 is negative 5x. 3 times x is a positive 3x. And 3 times negative 5 is a negative 15. And then you just add the diagonals. These two you add. Okay, and that will give you the answer. And then this last one is just in case your teacher has used it for factoring. Okay, and they taught you this in middle school and intermediate as well, where you add up and you multiply down. Okay, so hopefully you remember this and you use this. You can use this on your test or so that you can remember things on how to do for the test.